Okay, we're live. Okay. Looking good. Okay, we start sharing and we'll begin with the podcast. We'll just wait until some people join and we'll begin the pay-per-view, the podcast, the full preview. And I'll try to not curse this time around. Okay, we'll. Yo, Badger, we have the graphic going on. the graphic will give me the power. I'm sure. I'm just sharing a little bit, and I'll begin with the fights. So, thank you for joining, man. Man, I really do need the Oblivion soundboard. We'll work on that. We'll work on that for the next one. I have actually a MIDI keyboard, so it would be very easy to set up actually. I'll just we just need the Bella Porsche, yeah, emotes on the chat, right? That's when when we will feel at home at last. Okay, I'll just wait a little bit longer and I'll just share my links here. And I guess I'll begin. just pause here, a little bit here, a little bit here. I need Ronan. Where is Ronan? For fuck's sake. Badger is bouncing out like Bella Porsche on that emoji. Okay, I wait like 1 minute and I'll begin with the whole podcast. So I'll finish setting up the rest of my stuff and we'll be ready to go. This one I don't need. I have. You have Heavy with the most appropriate last name in the world right here. Yo, we have Ronan too. Okay. If Ronan is here, we can begin the podcast. We're hours away from my birthday, so I'll count this as my birthday present. Yo, Dr. Jones. Glad to have you here, man. Thank you for being here. I'll begin talking about fights, like, actually very soon. I've heard that obviously I don't believe in this, but I've heard that it is bad luck to wish happy birthday to someone before it is their birthday. Or maybe it was New Year's and I'm just saying shit, you know? It is always good to have a doctor in the house. So make sure no one is eating any apples, because we don't want those apples to keep the doctor away. Anyway, we'll begin the podcast right now, okay? Do I sound fine, by the way? Like, it's my levels of audio are decent right now? Okay, I'll begin. What's up, everyone? I'm Feño from the Fight Site, and this is the fall preview. We're here to talk about UFC 308. This one is very exciting because we have what is, for most people like me, for the nerds, the biggest fight of the year. For the featherweight title, we have Ilia Topuria El Matador against Max Holloway, the blessed one. And co-main event's pretty big too, right? We have Bobby Knuckles, the Reaper, Robert Whittaker against Khamzat Wars Chimaev. So everything is very exciting. This one is kind of stacked. But honestly, with that main event, they could have whatever on the prelims, and I would watch anyway. I'm so hyped for this event. So yeah, this one is brought to you by our overlords in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates. This is going on earlier on Saturday than usual because, you know, them Arab prince, they pay good money to have events at their time, unlike England that they have to watch the fights at like 4 a.m. and shit. But yeah, this is a big event and we have a lot of fights to talk about. So why don't we had one fight that fell apart. It was Said Nurmagomedov against Willy Cap Daniel Santos. That one is not going on anymore. The UFC is currently looking for a replacement for Daniel Santos. Charles Johnson tried to step in. They told him no. So if any fight gets announced, I guess I can make like a short video on Twitter or something to talk about the new matchup. But we'll talk about what we have right here. We'll get into the first fight. Let me get. Look at this technology, man. The first fight. We're trying the new layout for those that are watching live. And we'll talk about the first fight when I find my notes, because they have changed the order of the bouts quite a few times. But yeah, the first fight of the night is a middleweight bout between Bruno Silva, excuse me. Bruno Ferreira is also seeing action, but it's in another fight. We have a middleweight fight between blindado Bruno Silva against Ismail Naurdiev, who is coming back to the UFC. So let's begin with Bruno Silva, a wild but heavy-handed southpaw striker who switches stances often. Bruno Silva likes to walk people down behind his high guard, behind kicks, looking to blitz in with loopy punches that he throws with wild form, but he throws them with sneaky accuracy and power, keeping his weight under him despite all the shifting. Once he gets his opponents against the fence, he can put combinations well, attacking with hooks and uppercuts and using his lead hand to post, and he attacks both body and head with power and decent awareness of shots coming back. His defense relies a lot on his management of distance, leanbacks, and his high guard, though he does move his head after combos here and there, and his punching form usually takes his head off center line, and he uses a sort of Dracula guard to protect against the fence. Other than his powerful kicks, he also adds variety with his ability to find powerful knees, especially during clinch breaks, where he's also dangerous with loopy punches. Not much of an open space wrestler, but he's an opportunistic takedown artist inside the clinch. He can defend takedowns in open space decently well, especially when he has a read on the distance and timing of his opponent, attacking grips early and removing his hips from the equation. He has been taken down by prolonged exchanges against capable shade wrestlers, but he's a solid mat wrestler and scrambler, always looking to create space to wall walk or push off the hips, and is surprisingly good at defending back takes, attacking hooks early. From top position, his ground and pound is remarkable, not only able to generate big power from small spaces, but also having dangerous accuracy, which he has put to good use even from his back. Formerly the owner of an iron shin and a good conditioning, both aspects of his game seem to be deteriorating with age. He's not only less durable than before, but his wide punching form borderlines on straight up sloppy at times now. Against him, we have Ismail Naurdiev, a well-rounded kickboxer. Naurdiev mostly likes to operate at kicking range, either pressuring or staying at neutral ground, keeping people at bay with feints, his jab that goes to the body and head, and his variety of kicks. An ambidextrous kicker, Naurdiev is constantly punishing the body and legs and doesn't have a problem facing either orthodox or southpaw opponents. And while he has the ability to switch himself, he usually stays in his natural orthodox stance. Front kicks and question marks add variety, and his jumping switch kick is somewhat of a trademark move of him. A mechanically solid boxer, his left hook and straight right hand carry power, and he can set them up well with his feints and jabs, but he's not much of a pocket boxer. He fights with a responsible high guard from which he can parry effectively, and he's always feigning level changes and proactively moving his head. When pushed back, his defense takes a hit, as he can become vulnerable after his parries and tends to lean back too much. Strong in the clinch, especially with the wizard, he can elbow and knee effectively, can reposition with the wizard kick, and he's hard to take down from there. Even when losing balance, he usually lands in all fours with wide posts and is quick to get back to his feet. Not afraid to shoot takedowns, he can tend to shoot from too far away, but his level change is quick. He disguises his shot decently well with his feints and movement, and he has good drive on his single leg takedown. Good all-around grappler as well. He's solid from top position with dangerous ground pound and a good back take, and he's a resourceful grappler from his back with good sweeps and ability to wall walk with the wizard. Naurdiev has been inconsistent in his career as of late. He fought as Steed at 175 pounds and is back in the UFC at 185. His biggest issues show when he's pushed back and he doesn't have a grappling edge as a safety blanket. Tough and well conditioned, durability has been hit or miss as of late. Naurdiev gets back to the UFC and Bruno Silva welcomes him. The Brazilian has some tools even at this stage of his career that are concerning for the Russian-born fighter. The blitzes in particular, as Naurdiev can fall apart when he's pushed back. And while he has good cage awareness, his footwork is on the wide side and he can be vulnerable trying to regain the center of the cage. Silva is not the kicker Naurdiev is, but he will compete there, so it will be on Naurdiev's to control the pace of the fight with his jab and feints to avoid the big counter punches from the Brazilian. While Silva presents danger in basically every phase, I feel like his decline is apparent and he has been having trouble with his reactions, conditioning, and even with his previously outstanding durability lately. I think Naurdiev makes a successful UFC return, getting a TKO on round 2. Okay, let's catch up with the chat. Jorge Lopez, thank you, my man. Happy to have you here. Chris Kushman, Sick Breakdown, subscribe. Thank you very much, man. Dr. Jones says, I need to tune into these preview shows more because I love everything you do on Twitter. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm trying to stay very active on Twitter. Was just finishing like some like last minute tape study. Obviously, I did a lot more earlier, but yeah. I like covering all the fights. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it is fun to talk. I always like when people talk about like sometimes when I used to be like a more new fan to the sport. I also remember like, oh, I like this fighter that I saw in a prelim fight, but I never hear anyone talk about them. So I think that this show is like a chance for people to hear some analysis on maybe some lesser known fighters, and obviously I get to cover like the super good high level fights as well. This episode brought to you by Monster this time around. This is the Reaper, the Monster juice. This is like super sweet. It's like made for 8 years old, but 8 years old can't drink it because it's obviously an energy drink for degenerates addicted to caffeine like me. Ronan says, I remember Bruno Silva looking 1,000 years old when he fought Whiteman, but that was overall a Super Yankee fight. Yeah, man, Bruno Silva looked past it in that fight. And Chris Whiteman still had to... Whiteman still had to hit him with the 1-2 eye poke, right? To win that fight. That was insane. It was so dirty. Yeah, I bet kids still try to drink the energy drinks, man. Hopefully not the 8 years old, right? Okay, we'll get into the next fight very soon. Okay, we have light heavyweights next. Yeah, man, the Bruno Silva performance against Ferreira aged very well because he took some big shots. But I feel like that performance took like the last of him. It took the last of prime that he had in him, I feel like. Like, he has never looked the same since that fight. We have never seen, like, the crazy ground and pound. He's just, like... It's the durability, man. Like, taking punches from Pereira, it seems like it takes something out of your soul, man. Anyway, I'll catch my notes for this fight. Okay, we're here. Next we have a light heavyweight bout. It is between Ivo Aslan, who welcomes Rafael Cerqueira to the UFC. Let's begin with Ivo Aslan, a powerful kickboxer. Aslan's approach is very straightforward. He likes to operate a neutral space behind big leg kicks and a stiff jab, looking to set up his big right hand or counter opponents. His punches past his jab are on the loopy side, but he has good timing and decent accuracy to find the mark with them. And once he's opened up, he puts his punches together. He's not a mechanically sound combination puncher, but he remains aware, and his volume and aggression offer him some level of safety and allow him to pull away in close fights. His counter ability is one of his best traits, and he also counters in combination. His defense is very bare bones, as he relies mostly on his spacing, and he rarely moves his head with any consistency. He does maintain a high guard and has some parrying abilities, including catching kicks. His takedown defense looks solid, and he's very quick to grab underhooks and circling. And inside the clinch, he's also good at fighting grips and generating space to get back to the center of the cage. His grappling at high-level competition remains somewhat unknown. He was submitted by Turkali in their first encounter, but defended every takedown with little trouble on their UFC rematch. Cardio is suspect, but he carries power late into fights, and he seems tough and durable. Against him, we have Cerqueira, an athletic striker. It's almost impossible to know how good Cerqueira is. Not only there is limited footage of him, but he also has been fighting a low level of competition throughout his whole career. He seems comfortable inside the cage, but how much of that comes from opponents unable to push him, it's hard to tell. He's a creative striker with a good eye for openings and attacks body and head well. He switches stances and feints a good amount, and that allows him to set up flashy strikes like flying knees, spinning attacks. He remains calm under fire, but there's no much in the way of head movement from him, mostly backing up with his high guard, looking for an opening to throw counters to scare foes away. He trains out of a good grappling camp, Galpao da Luta, home of Jailton Almeida, and he has 2 arm triangle victories to his name, but he has been mostly fighting strikers. Cardio is an unknown. Not only he finishes most fights in round 1, but he's usually dictating the pace of the fights as the bigger and more athletic fighter. I expect this to be a striking affair, but it is hard to make predictions when Cerqueira hasn't fought anyone as good as Aslan. Cerqueira does seem to have some advantages in the matchup, as he's the more fluid striker and possesses more variety in his arsenal, and there's a small chance he has the gas tank advantage just because he is less tense than Aslan. That being said, he's used to fight smaller fighters that don't push back much, and Aslan is a big and athletic fighter with big power of his own. Making a pick seems silly here, but I guess I have to go with the more proven product and picking Aslan to get a knockout in the second round. Let's get back to the shot. Dr. John said he took big shots and gave them back against a guy who has been holding the bad weight classes hostage for being cool. Yeah, pretty much, man. Bruno Ferreira is crazy, man. We have Dan Tom, the GOAT, man. So happy to have you here, man. He says if Southpaw Max shows up, Topuria is fucking toast. Oh, that's ballsy, man. That's ballsy. That's a ballsy read. I'll make a little bit more of... I'll share a little bit more and we'll get back to the... And I'll get back to the fights. Obviously, that's what we're here for, right? I'm sharing a little bit more. Okay, let's get back to the... Let's get back to it. Salpa Max... Salpa Max shows up. He won't be hitting the body though. Salpa Max is a headhunter. That's an interesting take, man. I didn't actually watch a lot of Salpa Max in preparation for this. I'm not expecting him to, but maybe that's a little bit of a blind side in my preview, so that's something to consider. But yeah, let's get back. We have a lot of fights. Okay, next one is actually kind of interesting. It's everything good. It's everything good. Okay. We have to find the Renat one. Okay, we're here. We're here. We move to a welterweight bout next, and it's Rinat Fakhretdinov against Carlos Leal. So let's begin with Rinat. Wild wrestle boxer, Rinat starts fights quick, pressuring opponents to the fence, marching them down behind a stiff jab and wide hooks from both sides. His right hand... Oh, wait. I haven't been actualizing the layout. I'm such an amateur when it comes to that. Yeah, so let's get here. The image slideshow. Oh, it's on autoplay? No, like I don't. Give me a little second to fix a little thing. Hotkeys. No, it should be good. Okay, so yes. Oh my god, man. Why doesn't Oh my god, man. What is going on? Okay. I guess I leave it with that. Oh, we have Ghost. We have Chronic Combat. Conversations, the boys. Yeah. Okay, I just get back to the podcast because I'm dealing with some technical difficulties. Have some very cool to change the fights there in that corner, but it is not working out. I don't know why. I give it a last shot, but okay, no. I'll give it a last shot and I go back to talking about fights for once. It doesn't work. Okay, forget it. We get into the fight. Let me check that everything is in order. We have a welterweight fight. It is between Rinat Fakhretdinov and Carlos Leal. We begin with Rinat. A wild wrestler boxer, Rinat starts fight quick, pressuring opponents to the fence, marching them down behind a stiff jab and wide hooks from both sides. His right hand is his best punch, and despite his liking for throwing it as a wide hook around as an overhand, he has hurt people numerous times throwing it straight down the middle. Rinat can switch stances and has shown some clever use of shifts to go people off the cage or to track fleeing opponents, and he's also the owner of a quick switch left kick that rounds up his ranged threats. An active feinter, Rinat looks to proactively move his head, and he does have follow-up options to his initial motion, be it slipping to the front and pulling back, or coming back with the left hook after slipping to his left to close the door. His feet can get out of position when moving his head or backing up though. A strong transition fighter, Fakhretdinov doesn't have a lot of setups to his takedowns or clinch entries, but his pressure and the boxing range he possesses allows him to mix things up effectively. If his takedowns are soft during the initial shot, he's quick to grab collar ties and come back with wide punches, elbows, or knees to force breaks. And he has been consistently strong in the clinch, even when he's the one with his back against the fence, fighting grips well. Other than changing levels for the double, he also likes to use a running knee tap to push opponents against the fence, and he usually likes to finish takedowns next to the fence, be it double legs or high crush lifts. Reactive shoves complement his wrestling game and give him a bigger safety blanket on the feet. Rinat is tough and greedy, but his conditioning has been an issue, fading during third rounds, imposing a pace too high. Other than that, while his game is coherent, his form can get out of hand at times, exposing him to counters and making him expend more energy than necessary. Against him we have Carlos Leal, a wide stance kickboxer. Leal likes to march people to the fence behind his wide, powerful rear leg kicks. From there he looks for spots to explode with his powerful 1-2, a wide rear hand or roundhouse kicks to the body and head from both stances or a flying knee. Leal is a comfortable fighting out of both stances and switches accordingly to find his targets. When pushed back, he can jab from both stances and is an effective counterpuncher moving backward with cross counters, lead hooks, and a surprising ability to time hooks switching back to remain safe. Head movement is lacking as he mostly relies on his spacing and counters to keep safe, but he's active blocking with his hand and leaning back when he has the initiative. Physically strong in the clinch, he fights grips well and can hold people against the fence, chipping away with knees and small punches. Leal will attempt throws from there, but he's not a very prolific wrestler. He's more effective when he can find a single leg as he remains tight and runs the pipe well, but he needs a good entry for that. Takedown defense is a strong point. His compact frame and athleticism allow him to sprawl shots effectively, and he fights very hard for underhooks and to disarm grips if he's driving against the fence. Here from top position, Leal seems to favor control over damage, and while he remains active with shots, he can have trouble finding balance between landing damaging shots and disallowing get-ups. Leal is tough and well conditioned, but he doesn't fight at a very high pace, and while he does attack body and legs effectively, he can lack a second gear and can fail to seal the deal on fights if he doesn't find a singular conclusive finishing shot. This is an interesting fight for Rinat, as Leal presents some similar challenges to those that Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos and Dalby brought to the table in their fights. Namely, he's a consistent fighter who strikes hard, fights for initiative, and more importantly, is very hard to take down. The big difference here is that Leal can lack that second gear that allowed those previous fighters to take over the fight once Rinat got tired, and despite all of his good attributes, he can fail to impose his fight at times. Rinat will be the more active striker here and will probably put him on the back foot, which is not his A game. I also think the Russian is the better transition fighter, so even if he can't find easy takedowns, he can use the transition to land shots. Leal has a decent shot of finding a big moment to change the course of the fight to make it a close decision, but I expect Fakhretdinov to overwhelm him early. And even tired, he fights well enough to not fall apart against most fighters. My pick is Rinat Fakhretdinov by decision. We'll get back to the poll. Chris Cushman said, Dr. Jones ready for the Jared Gordon fight from Underrated Performance. Pretty sure I follow you. Hey man, that's a good shout. Let's everyone just go follow Underrated Performances on Twitter, man. He posts like great clips every day. We have Shriram in the house, one of the goats. Dr. Jones says Rinat has a secret weapon you must consider in any fight in Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia. Judges. He can lose by yeah, man. The judging in Abu Dhabi has been kind of sketchy, right? So we might see some funky scorecards involving some of the Eastern fighters. let's say like that, right? But yeah, man, that's an interesting fight, man, because Leal for sure can defend a takedown, man, but I feel like he doesn't have the pace. He doesn't have the pace to take over late into the fight, in my honest opinion. We have Dan Albert. Always super happy to have Dan Albert around, my former co-host. We'll be talking about Topuria Max the next week with Dan Albert, so look forward to that. We have a lot of good analysis. You know, our conversations are always very interesting, in my humble opinion. Jace Kendrick says, how long does it take you to prepare notes for the show? You do a lot of film study. Surely you don't do it by scratch every week. I'm trying to start like 7 days out, but I usually don't have to do much study, especially on big pay-per-views, because I'm familiar with most of the fighters. So I just like watch a few fights that I know will give me like the details that I need, you know. When it comes to I usually have to work very hard on the like super early prelims, especially when you have like the debutant fighters, because I've never seen them, and sometimes it is hard to like make a profile of a fighter when I'm seeing them for the first time, right? So I have to watch like many fights and take notes and rewatch fights sometimes. So yeah, I mean, the hardest part I would say is like that there are two kind of fights that are better that take the most work. There are fights like the main event right here, because it goes very into detail, right. When you think about Topuria versus Holloway, you gotta go to watch fights and look for specific things. And the other fighters that take a lot of work to prepare, in my opinion, are the like super early prelims, where it is hard to find footage. It is hard to find fights against good level of position. So all that kind of stuff can make it hard to scout a fighter, right? It is a lot easier when you have like 3 fights in the UFC or anything like that. Dan Albert says, James, when Feño and I used to do this, it was regularly like a good 2 weeks maximum of work. It's multiple fights for fighters that you're not familiar with. Those are like the most work. Rio Sosen says, forgive my ignorance, what does initiative mean? I see the word thrown around a lot this week. Okay, so initiative in combat sports, it's the fighter that has the initiative is the one that it's making the other fighter react, right? Initiative is a bit of an spectrum, I would say. It's not like a black and white thing. Sometimes it's very clear, like you feint and the other fighter moves, you are controlling the initiative in that moment, right? But it's always a lot of fighting for initiative during fights. Things to control the initiative very well are I'll be very short with this. I can probably talk about it in length in some other podcast, but things to consider when you're watching and you want to know like who has the initiative. Look the movement. Pressuring is not always having the initiative, because if the fighter is circling on the outside and is moving the other guy around, the fighter that is moving on the outside is the one that has the initiative, right? But if you're pressuring and you're like corralling your opponent against the fence and he's reacting to you, to your movement, you have the initiative at that point. If you're feinting and your opponent is moving accordingly to your feints, you have the initiative in that moment. When you're putting long combinations and your opponent is like actively having to defend against your strikes, you're having the initiative there. For example, if someone shoots a takedown out of desperation, they are not having the initiative. But if you like set up the takedown carefully, you're having the initiative. So that's initiative. And a lot of fighters depend a lot on controlling the initiative, especially for their defense. I mentioned this basically on like every other profile that I make of a fighter. I always mention like, oh, this fighter has better defense when he has the initiative. That's usually the case with all of them, but some fighters have like better reactive defense. It's a bit of a rare case, but it's something that happens for sure. James Kendrick says no booty burglars this week. Abu Dhabi do it to no WMMA. Oh yeah, man, that they didn't want the woman out there this week, right? I didn't realize that. It's all men, baby. For you know MMA fan base is very straight, right? they are very straight, well-adjusted people, so they'll be very happy to see their sweaty man, especially because Abu Dhabi is so hot, right? So we'll see a lot of sweaty men fighting each other, grappling each other, and the straight MMA fans will be very happy about it. Let's get to the next fight. Oh, this one is interesting. Okay. Next one, it's a bantamweight bout between Farid Basharat against Victor Hugo. Let's begin with Basharat. A Swiss stance kickboxer and wrestler, big and athletic, Basharat is mostly an outfighter, and he's a bit more focused on the kicks than his brother Javid. He still makes use of a good jab to control the pace, and he will let go with a sharp 1-2, a wide overhand off the level change, or a counter left hook, but he does the bulk of his damage with his quick kicks to all three levels and with variety in the form of front snap kicks and question mark kicks from both sides. Farid is constantly circling on the outside and fading, and that helps him with setting his spinning attacks, having a dangerous spinning back fist and a stabbing spinning back kick to the body. Other than good distance management, Javid also has good cage wrap, and while he relies on circling wide a bit too much as opposed to tight pivoting, he's hard to pressure. He's also good at framing and hiding behind his lead shoulder when moving back, and he's not afraid to crash distance to fight clinches or level changes into takedowns when things get sketchy, and he's a decent kick catcher and checker on top of it. A mix of feints and good combination boxing could be concerning for his lack of nuanced head movement. A good wrestler, grappler, and overall transition fighter, despite fighting from a long range and his long frame, Basharat has a quick level change and good setups for his entries, using the reactions to his kicks well to step through, and is the owner of a good reactive shot when pushed back as well. He's a good chain wrestler both in open space and against the fence, be it with his double and single leg series or with trips from the clinch against the fence, and he has solid ground pound even from close guard with good posturing and good punches and elbows. From his back, he's good at using knee chills and butterfly hooks to create space and get that back up, and he can find the single to wrestle up. Well conditioned and tough, Basharat has the most trouble when stuck in a single area defending, as his game revolves too much around transitions and his lack of depth in certain areas can be exploitable. Against him we have Victor Hugo, Athletic and dynamic, Victor Hugo is well-rounded but unstructured. A powerful striker, Hugo has power and speed in his punches and kicks. And while he tends to feign a good amount with step-ins and head movement, all of his strikes are big movements, including a big amount of jumping and spinning attacks, so he can have trouble controlling the pace of a fight. He does have some clever setups when he has people reacting to his feint in the point of shifting entries, and he has good eyes for punishing habits. He's a solid counter-puncher with a sweeping left hook that he can throw with power moving backwards. His defense is largely hit and miss, while he can be proactive with good head movement and has good distance management and some footwork tricks. When he's pushed back, he mostly relies on lean backs and his good reflexes. Cagecraft has been a problem, and he usually finds his back against the fence waiting for counter opportunities. Takedown defense is very solid. He uses his athleticism and strength well to fight grips and push people off him, and he has decent takedowns of his own against the fence in the form of trips from underhooks and knee taps attacking the legs. A solid grappler, Hugo is somewhat of a leg lock specialist and is quick to attack from his back with triangle armbar omoplata series before moving to the legs, where he's quick to use heel hooks to create space or chain submission attempts like knee bars, calf slicers, that kind of stuff. From top, he has good posture with solid ground and pound. Hugo possesses a lot of good attributes. He's durable, athletic, tough, and well-conditioned, but he relies on big moments to win rounds and has trouble dictating the pace and phases of fights. Hugo has skills and athleticism to compete with Farid everywhere the fight goes, and not only compete but to present danger, as he is the bigger puncher on the feet and has been a submission threat throughout his career. That being said, it is Basharat who will be dictating the pace of the fight and also where it takes place, and he's the more active fighter. Hugo's takedown defense and grappling are more than solid, but he puts himself against the fence way too much to pick him to win by anything other than a sudden finish. Basharat wins a decision. That's the final pick. Let's get back to the chat. Okay, no updates. We'll move into the next fight. Quick then. You know, everyone just want to... Minute winner Farid versus moment winner Hugo. Yeah, it's pretty much that. Hugo is like looking to do something big, right? He's not very invested in like putting money in the bank, right? He will not attack with like constant. If he attacks with a leg kick or a body shot, it's because he wants to fold you in half. Basharat, on the other hand, it is a guy that it's like will chip away, even though he strikes very hard too. But he will attack, he will put volume out there for the sake of the process instead of for the sake of killing you, like Victor Hugo does. And yeah, usually unless there's like a matchup dynamic at play, the process-driven fighters are more compensated for their efforts. Dr. John said, "Who do you think is better, more interesting between the Basharat bros?" I still think Javid is probably better just because he's a better boxer. I like that Javid gets into pocket exchanges, goes with the left hook, especially left hook to the body, and has like pivots inside there. I feel like he had kind of a bad showing against Sahabi, and fair play for TriStar, who I give a lot of shit to, but Ayaman showed up with a good game plan. The takedown defense for sure through Javid off. Farid might be a bit more athletic, I think, but his lack of boxing, I think, is a bit concerning moving forwards in the division. I still think both are like very interesting. I think right now it is not clear who's the better one of the two. I think like to be if we go by results alone, I feel like Farid beating Lapilus is a lot more impressive than Javid losing to Ayaman Sahabi, right? It gotta be. We'll get to the... What's the next one anyway? Okay, we have heavyweights. Hey, guys, we have heavyweights. The favorite of... the favorites. And we have a former light heavyweight, so this is like crossover. This is like multiverse. This is like multiverse bad divisions. We get into that. And we move to the big boys division. Canadian Nzechukwu moves up to heavyweight and he fights Beast Boy Chris Barnett. Let's begin with Nzechukwu, a big and athletic, well-rounded fighter. Nzechukwu moves up to heavyweight and has the dimensions to do so. A bit on the plodding side on the feet, he can be a bit unpolished but dangerous, especially when allowed to operate at long range, using his long punches from his southpaw stance and being effective at landing knees from the open side. Kennedy is at his most effective when he has control of the hand fight during open stance fights to control the initiative. While he moves after attacks and at range, he has been vulnerable to shots down the middle, particularly right hands during his entries. The clinch is his strongest area. He uses his long levers well, and he's aggressive with elbows and knees from a variety of positions, and the clinch is the place where he has presence as an offensive wrestler as well, usually using body locks and hooking the leg to either get takedowns or get to a back body lock. His takedown defense has also shown some weaknesses when exchanges extend, but he's a solid grappler. Patient from the bottom, waiting for opportunity to escape or wall walk, and from the top, he's an imposing figure with big ground and pound and solid positioning. Nzechukwu is tough and well conditioned and usually adapts as fights go long, but his lack of depth and suspect defense in multiple areas can cost him. Against him, we have Chris Barnett. Athletic and very stocky, Chris Barnett is now 38 years old, but he remains a dynamic threat at heavyweight. Very short for the division, while he still has kicking chops, he has had to rely on his boxing more and more as he ages. And he packs big power and decent instincts in the pocket with his loopy shots. He can get stranded at long range if he can get his kicks going, and he lacks good straight punches. Most of his feints come in the way of stepping in to fake a blitzing entry. That being said, he remains deceptively quick and athletic despite his age and build. The clinch has been a problem against competent and taller fighters, and while he can use his strength to push away and he's good at fighting punches during breaks, he can get stalled and damaged with attrition shots. Barnett is also a surprisingly agile scrambler, and his flexibility and stocky build has allowed him to escape bad position numerous times. Cardio is decent and he's incredibly tough, but he has some clear limitations to his style. It is hard to know how well Kennedy is going to fare up at heavyweight, but he does have the size, and he might gain a bit of relative speed moving up. Nzechukwu also likes his height and reach advantage, and he has plenty of that in this particular matchup. Barnett has the speed to shock the Nigerian, and he's hard to wrestle, so this is not an unwinnable fight for him, but he does lack the straight shots and same time counters that are usually Nzechukwu's bane. The clinch also has been a problem for Barnett in the past, and Kennedy is quick to pile up damage with knees and elbows in there. So my pick is Nzechukwu makes a successful heavyweight debut and he wins a decision. Okay, let's. Okay, it's good that the chat is very hype about the heavyweights, right? Everyone loves the fucking heavyweights. Kennedy Nzechukwu is at heavyweight. Yeah, he moved up. I think that's a good move, to be honest. Like, dude is so fucking big, and like, most heavyweights nowadays are not that big, man. Most are just fat. And Nzechukwu is like 230 on very good shape, so I think, especially if he puts on like 10 pounds, like he's going to be a big heavyweight. So physically wise, I feel like Nzechukwu is going to be fine at heavyweight. Freedom says, never mind the sarcasm, I do like Chris Barnett despite myself. That's crazy, man. That's Freedom liking Chris Barnett is kind of crazy. I mean, I know it's very hard to dislike Chris Barnett because he's so lovable, but still kind of crazy, right? Still a little bit kind of crazy. Which of these heavyweights pivot? Pivot discourse. I've seen Nzechukwu pivot a few times. He does pivot when he has like the control at open space. He's landing shots and he sometimes like gets cute with a pivot. So that's your answer here. Honestly, I'm glad this is heavyweight fight because both guys are cartoon characters. Anyway, yeah, this is such a silly fight. I cannot get mad at this particular heavyweight bout, to be honest. Oh yeah, Ferreira is probably very happy that he doesn't have to fight Kennedy Nzechukwu anymore, right? Yeah, People forget that the Jambilante, like the finish with that capoeira wheel kick, that was kind of crafty. You're right. It wasn't just like throwing up the spinning shit. It was like, if you analyze the sequence, he was kind of sneaky about it. Okay, we'll move to the. Sadly, we don't have to talk about. But we have to talk about middleweights now. We have to talk about middleweights, and I know you guys love middleweights. I know you guys love the middleweights, so let's get into that. Okay. Let me find my notes, and we'll talk about some middleweights, some very middleweights. Excuse me. And next we have a middleweight bout between Abus Magomedov and Bruno the Hulk Ferreira. Let's begin with Abus. A long wrestle kickboxer, Magomedov liked to establish a long range, walking people down behind marching knee lifts, attacking with stabbing front kicks to the body and a sharp 1-2. His long frame allows him to find knees at range, and he's quick to attack with head kicks as well. From up closer, Magomedov can put combinations together with his hands, having a solid left hook that he can use to close the door and reposition if he gets messed inside the pocket, and can attack the body with it too, if he gets people reacting to his jab feints. Magomedov has good footwork when he has the initiative, being able to pressure and also have awareness about his relative position in exchanges. He moves his head well with his punches, taking his head off center, but he can reach when extending combinations, and his mechanics can get sloppy when forced back. A solid all-around grappler and wrestler, Magomedov is strong inside the clinch. Not only he's good at landing knees from different grips, but he also uses his levers well from up close and has a variety of trips from over-unders, like in his polished throws and inside trips. As a wrestler from open space, he has a powerful sprawl, and it's usually hard to get to his hips. He does offer some offensive wrestling of his own in the form of reactive clinches, but he tends to drive people to the cage and work from there. From top position, he's solid, being able to control opponents from a variety of positions, be it from front headlock, traditional BJJ top and back control, and also rights against defense. And he's punishing with ground and pound, both from dominant positions and during transitions, and can finish with submissions from the back and front headlock. Conditioning has always been the problem with Abus, as we've seen him fade in fights numerous times. He was able to maintain pace in his last outing, winning all 3 rounds in a fight that, even though he dominated, he had to face adversity and bodywork at times, so that's a good sign moving forwards. Other than that, he also tends to get a lot sloppier when tired, and his defense falls apart when he loses control of his footwork and his ability to move backwards. Against him we have Bruno Ferreira. A stocky, powerful, and athletic fighter, Ferreira likes to hang in neutral space, switching stances and feinting step-ins, looking for spots to explode into range. All about big actions, Ferreira throws almost everything at full power and usually looks for immediate setups in his combinations, like leg kicks to throw off the balance, backing up an opponent into flying knee, or using the expected reactions of a punch to set up the following one. His constant fading and stance switches and shifting entries allow him to deal with his usual height and reach disadvantage, surprisingly better than you would expect for a fighter with no nuanced jab, and fighters are forced to respect his feints and entries because he packs big power in both hands. Ferreira is also a counter threat, and while he's not a pocket boxer, he has good eyes and timing, and he can punish people sitting still after their combinations. A credentialed judo black belt, Ferreira is a strong wrestler and grappler. Not only his stocky frame makes him hard to take down from open space, but he's expectedly strong inside the clinch with a big array of throws, hip tosses, and foot sweeps. He's also a good sprint grappler when he gets taken down, having good fundamentals about disarming grips, building a base, and escaping during transitions. If he gets stuck on the bottom, he's patient about waiting for spots to explode to reverse create space and movement. Ferreira is a physical force, and his game makes a lot more sense than one would originally expect, but his lack of nuance, especially as a defensive striker, is his biggest problem so far. Durability seems okay, and conditioning is a bit of a question mark against high-level opposition. This fight pits 2 dangerous athletes with contrasting styles. Abus is the longer and more methodical fighter while still dynamic, while Ferreira usually thrives in chaos with his bursts of aggression and immediate setups. Despite Abuz's cardio issues in the past, he fought at a good pace in his last fight and won a dominant third round, while Ferreira has never been out of the second, so any conditioning advantage remains a question mark. Grappling should also be competitive. Abuz likes to get takedowns from the clinch, but Ferreira is well versed in there, so they are likely to remain upright unless someone gets clipped or tired. The clinch would be a good place for Abuz to land knees and wear on Ferreira, but he needs to be careful during breaks against the shorter fighter. While I feel Bruno's style can offer real danger to Abuz, and he might have the better cardio of the two, we don't know that, I feel like his lack of nuance will keep him stuck at long range for prolonged periods, where the cleaner boxer and long kicks of the Russian will punish him. I'm thinking Abuz Magomedov gets a knockout on the second round. (185, 205 heavyweight, the glamour divisions that Dana seems to love on the if you don't know, now you know. Yeah, man. That White for some reason still loves his heavyweights. Abuz is already out of game. Man, the Abuz Magomedov like gas tank, especially during the Strickland fight and during the Cayo fight is especially because like I think the Strickland one was like kind of short notice, and Strickland like puts on a pace, right? But against Cayo, like Abuz just got super tired, just fighting like a mid-pace fight. That one was very concerning. But you know that fight against what's his name, the guillotine guy, the guy that guillotined Colby Covington, Warley Alves. That fight against Warley Alves was actually very promising for Magomedov. He looked like very, very powerful, and he was still there in the third round. So good for Abuz, because I'm not a big fan of his style, but he's like very solid everywhere. Middleweight needs more fighters like that. Like he's still like janky, especially when boxing, especially because he's so lanky, but he's like a good wrestler. He has some process as a striker. So I support if Magomedov can sort out the cardio. I feel like he's just going to be pretty decent. Like maybe not top 5, but a top 10 material for sure. Like we've seen what Imavov has done with a similar skill set and a bit better cardio. James Kendricks asks, can kicks deter wrestling? It depends on the wrestler, right? And the kind of kicks and the kicker, but it can be a good. I feel like you gotta be careful about it, because obviously you can get taken down off a kick if you get timed, because you are on just one leg. But kicks can be very effective. Leg kicks can damage the lead leg, can damage the ability to drive for a wrestler. Front kicks down the middle are a very good tool if they don't get caught, because they put a barrier between you and the wrestler, and they punish the body. You want the wrestler to get tired. So I feel like if you're not kicking at all against a wrestler, you are missing on a lot of opportunities, I would say. In the Cayo fight, neither man was even working that hard, and Abuz got so tired. Yeah, man, that fight. I feel like that fight was more concerning than the Strickland one, to be honest. In the Strickland one, at least he was working hard. I mean, I know he got tired like super quick, but at least it was like hard fought. The Cayo fight was very concerning. Bro has the Sabit tank, just gets on a timer with no connection. Pretty much, man. Pretty much is it's a very funny way to say it, but it's pretty much like that. Like it doesn't matter what's going on in the third round. The bro is getting tired. Like, and if you're like that, you might as well like fight super hard on the first 2 rounds, right? Okay, we have a good division next. So the party's over, guys. We have to talk about like pretty good fighters right now. Wait. We move down to lightweight for our next fight. It is a bout between Miktibek Orolbai and Mateusz Rebecki. Let's begin with Orolbai. A wrestle boxer who fights out of a tall stance, Orolbai mostly likes to walk people to the cage with solid pressure in footwork, constantly feigning his level change at open space, and is very good at using it to set up strikes, in particular his straight right hand, which is a quick and damaging punch. A good variety of kicks and a solid left hook round up his striking game. Orolbai likes to pressure opponents against the fence without being overly aggressive, using well his takedown threat, and using long strikes to push people back. Still a bit stiff on the feet, he feints moving his head on the outside, but he can lack head movement during combination, and this has seen him eat big shots against a number of opponents. Orolbai's A game is his chain wrestling, and is complemented by his pressure and constant level change feints. He's a resourceful wrestler, and even though he can get stuff on the first layer, if he gets any kind of tight body lock or a hold of a leg, while he will stick like glue to his opponent, and his multiple options and physical strength mean his opponents are likely to go for a ride. His top position game gives openings to get-ups, but he's content to land strikes in transition and work his solid mat returns. His grappling is well adapted to work against the fence, and he can punish wall walks with wrist and leg rights to land big ground and pound. When he has found himself off his back, he has been urgent to get back to his feet, and is good at creating space and attacking grips from bad positions. Shin is not granite, but his recovery seems very good. He's tough and can dig deep in hard fights. His cardio is good, but he can fade during later rounds with his insane pace, and he maintains composure and pop while tired. Against him we have Rebecki. A stocky and powerful southpaw, Rebecki is a pressure fighter who likes to push people to the fence behind the threat of his powerful kicks and his big left hand. To accomplish this, he possesses good pressure in footwork and an active filler jab that he uses to gather reactions and line up his left hand that he usually throws in the way of a wide overhand. Rebecki constantly attacks all three levels, not afraid to attack with powerful inside leg kicks with his left leg in open stance matchups. He can also throw his left hand to the body as a straight punch. Against the fence, he unloads with combinations, like his left uppercut to the body and a follow-up right hook upstairs, all while using his jab to keep his opponent busy and set up his shots. Rebecki will look to parry shots with his high guard and usually looks to move his head after throwing his combos, and is also good at catching kicks and converting his catches into counters and takedowns. On the topic of takedowns, Rebecki is a strong wrestler who uses his stocky build both to attack and defend takedowns effectively. Physically very strong, he likes to finish takedowns against the fence, sending his shots with his hands, but he can also drive from open space in the form of a reactive shot and the aforementioned kick catches. From top position, he's heavy and has good ground and pound, and he likes to pass to crucifix to finish fights, but he's also good from back control. From the bottom, Rebecki is hard to hold down as he looks to create space, attack the legs, or wrestle up. He's durable and tough, but his game can be shallow, and that can get him in trouble if forced back if he's not successful with his A game. And while his cardio is good, the pace he sets can get out of hand, making him fade late into fights. This is an interesting fight between wrestlers who can throw with big power on the feet. Rebecki is the more comfortable of the two on the feet, while Orolbai is probably the more technical wrestler and grappler. Initiative will be key here as both guys are at their best when moving forwards. I feel like Orolbai is more likely to accept pressure early, but Rebecki might sit back more than usual if he has to defend takedowns. Rebecki has the power on the feet and takedown defense to make things hard for Orolbai, especially early, but I feel like the length and versatility in wrestling and scrambles from the Kyrgyz will get him the win. Orolbai wins by submission in the third round. Speaking of someone who gasses there, Rebecki. I mean, I think Rebecki getting tired on that Carlos Diego Ferreira fight was kind of fair. like he was going way too hard. But yeah, I mean, it was for sure. He faded for sure. Orolbai also got very tired on that Elvis Brenner fight, but that pace was insane. Because he just was going for such big takedowns, and he throws so hard on the feet. So this fight is going to be very interesting. I feel like at this level, Rebecki is one of one of the most challenging matchups for Orolbai at this stage, I feel. Because he's like a guy that can actually wrestle very good, has like a tough build to wrestle. I feel like Orolbai is just going to wrestle most guys in the division, so it will be very interesting to see if he gets to do that against Rebecki here. Ronan says, I like Orolbai in his last fight. Yeah, Orolbai is neat, man. He was cool in that Elvis Brenner fight. He wasn't as cool as Elvis Brenner, but Elvis Brenner is very cool. Do you like Orolbai's front kicks to push people back? Yeah, I think that's a great tool. I feel like he does a very good job. He has a very like snappy kick, and he throws from both legs. So that's kind of cool. Like, it's always funny when these like former USSR guys have like these. They are always like kind of kicky because they all have done some sanda over there in their countries. So they're usually like better technical kickers than the American wrestlers, for sure. Rebecki also got tired. Oh yeah, he got tired in that fight. I remember. Oh man, the river Styx joke is like the gifts that keeps on giving, man. It's but no one we will never top the Jose Aldo was hold by the lat drop when he was deep in the river Styx, but well, that one was pretty good too. Let's get into the next fight. Oh, we have sad hours next because we have RDA against huge guy at 170. So let's get to sad hours. Okay. We move up one division to welterweight because we have a fight between Jeff Neal and Rafael dos Anjos. Let's begin with Neal. A powerful southpaw kickboxer, Neal has relied on the basic of the open stance matchup throughout his career, heavily favoring strikes from his rear left side. Neal is effective leading and countering, but he prefers exchanging in open space, either having to move much around or having to commit to heavy pressure. His kicks from the left side have been taking a backseat to a more boxing-focused approach, but he's still a powerful kicker capable of attacking all three levels. But the bread and butter of his game is his left hand, that he mostly throws straight to the head and body, or he can loop around the guard or throw it as a heavy uppercut from up close. His right hand is not useless though. When he employs his jab during the 1-2, it's a straight and quick punch. His right hook is effective at checking incoming foes, and he has a sneaky lead uppercut he can land from range off the expectation of his left hand. Neal's defense can be inconsistent. When he has the initiative, he moves his head well after his combinations, and he possesses clean footwork to outposition foes and remain safe, but during prolonged exchange his head can remain on the center line, and he has been susceptible from strike shots at open space. A sturdy defensive wrestler and a solid grappler, Neal is held by his sturdy build and has been very hard to take down or even move around inside the clinch. Neal can be passive inside the clinch, and he fights grips well, but he can be stalled against the fence or can fail to land consistent offense from there. The owner of a powerful sprawl and strong from the front headlock, if he's taken down, he is also hard to hold down, being the owner of heavy hips and a powerful wizard that he can use to wall walk. The times Neal has been seen in top position, he looks to have heavy base and strong ground and pound. Conditioning and durability are good qualities for Neal, but he can lack adaptability against game plans that don't play into his A game. Dos Anjos. The former champion made his name as the premier southpaw pressure fighter in the sport. Nowadays, RDA is not as insistent with pushing opponents to the fence, as he now has a more calculated approach. Dos Anjos is still all about the initiative, fighting behind medium speed straight shots that he uses to probe, keep the opponent busy and gather reactions. From there, he starts setting up his bigger shots, including a brutal left kick to the body and head, quick and heavy outside leg kick, and a sneaky lead uppercut and winding left hand. Dos Anjos' defense is at his best when he's on the front foot, having good eyes to see shots coming, and mixing a variety of high guards and shoulder blocks to keep safe, also being good at parrying kicks when pushed back. But when he's pushed back, he can become too reactive and can lose track of his positioning and follow-up shots. Strong in the clinch with knees and elbows, his transition game between faces is a strong point. He mixes his takedown with his strikes very well, often manipulating his opponent's posture with shots or driving counters to time level changes as his solid chain wrestler from open space and also against the cage. His biggest flaws show up when he's put on the back foot, as he has a hard time predicting shots and using the appropriate defense, and his head movement can be one note. His takedown defense has been more than solid, but he has had trouble with dedicated chain wrestlers against the cage and has been particularly vulnerable to body lock attacks. Late career Dos Anjos has been inconsistent. His reactions and ability to absorb shots are all over the place, and his decision making, now that he's not a one-direction pressure machine, has also seen sketchy moments, but his condition and grit still remain great attributes. It is hard to tell how this one is going to play out on the feet because Neal hasn't faced a southpaw in his long UFC career, while RDA has experience against southpaws and his game translates surprisingly well. That being said, the X factor here is that RDA has been relying a lot on his wrestling, and Neal is an enormous welterweight who hits very hard. I think RDA has a big process edge, and maybe he could play into the inactivity of Neal against the fence to win rounds. But even with his advantages, it is hard to pick him against someone bigger, younger, and who is very dangerous in his preferred phase. RDA could make something happen, but I think Neal wins the biggest moments of the fight to win a decision. So yeah, that one sucks, man. I feel like this one sucks. I feel like if this was a bit younger RDA, I mean, like way younger RDA, I would feel like he could get a lot done inside the clinch against Jeff Neal, but Neal's so fucking big, man. Neal is like heavier than some middleweights inside the cage. I like, obviously RDA is not small, he's not weak, but man, dealing with such a big guy when you're like getting old, it probably kind of sucks, right? Freedom says, love Neal too, but always a chance Neal looks like the worst fighter ever when he can just double attack a southpaw. Yeah, there's a big chance that Neal sucks against there's a decent chance that Neal sucks against fellow southpaws, right? Because he's so much about the double attack. And he's so left hand heavy, like maybe he looks stupid against a southpaw, who knows, man. Dr. John says, I wish this was a prime RDA. Also, Neal striking in 2024 is just circle overhand. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Neal has regressed a bit. He looked pretty good against Luque, but I feel like Luque was very flattering in that fight because Luque was not throwing hard at all. And he still clipped him with the left hook on that first round, man. Was Wonderboy not a southpaw? But Wonderboy was switching a lot in that fight. And when he was southpaw, like Neal was just trying to close distance with the left hands. Wonderboy did a lot of orthodox though in that fight, I think. And Neal, all the answers from Neal were like trying to pressure him against the fence and then doubling up on the left hand, ending up on the clinch and not accomplishing anything against the defense. So it was like very frustrating fight. Madlock Fight Talk says post USADA RDA may show up. Hopefully, man. I'm all up for post USADA old guys showing up in great shape. To be honest, like Dos Anjos against Moicano looked great, and he looked pretty good against. Am I still live? Hopefully I am, right? He looked pretty good against... excuse me. Okay, sorry. But yeah, he looked pretty good against... I mean, not pretty good, but physically he looked good against Gamrot, I thought. I looked like he looked alright, physically wise, against Gamrot. He was like close to winning that fight too, like... It was like bad decisions. He won't have to deal with the wrestling, so who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe RDA shows up, makes a clown out of me. I would love to see that. Like I like Neal too, but Neal has been kind of frustrating. Even though I thought he won against Gary. It Because that was super close fight, man. Like, it was like Gary with a little bit more volume, but Neal landing like better shots. A lot of like blocked kicks by Gary that I still think should score, but they do not score that highly. So it was like a frustrating fight. It was a bad fight from both, I feel like. It was not a good look for either Neal or Gary, to be honest. Anyway, let's get... Ghost says, could you also define initiative as the ability to create threats? Yeah, for sure. That's a very good way to put it. Like, it's like, yeah, the threats, because threats is like it's very connected to reactions, right? You are threatening something when your opponent is aware of the threat, right? So that's a very cool way to put it. RDA gets Neal stuck on the fence for a very bad fight. Oh man, that would kind of suck, but I also don't want to see like RDA getting knocked out. So I don't know what I actually want from that fight. I don't think this is good matchmaking. I'm not a fan. Okay, let's get to the main card, I guess. We move one up to middleweight for the main card opener. We have Shara Bullet Magomedov against Armen Petrosyan. Let's begin with Shara Magomedov. An agile kickboxer, Shara Bullet fights out of a bouncy stance, looking to maintain kicking range. From there, he's very good at landing naked leg kicks, timing his opponent's movement and rhythm, and aided by his great speed. And he also has a wide variety of kicks to his disposal. Of note is his dexterous lead left leg, which he can throw side kicks, no switch high kicks, question marks, hook kicks, and everything in between. Shara is good at using lateral movement, feints, and misdirections to keep the fight where he wants it, but he's yet another example of an outfighter with footwork too wide, as he can fail to pivot when pressured and tends to either back up in straight lines or take big side steps to try to regain the center of the cage. Not much of a boxer, he can pop a jab here and there, and he packs power in both hands and can surprise with his straight punches during breaks or of his kicks, but he doesn't have much of a boxing game inside the pocket, and is not much of a combination puncher at range either. His defense relies on his distance management and vision, and he usually fights with his hands low, and most of his head movement comes in the way of lean backs. He does a good job of using his kicks to maintain distance, and will throw quick hands while moving back if he feels like he's getting overwhelmed. Inside the clinch, he's not much of a wrestler, but he has very good balance and will attack aggressively with knees and elbows that he throws with good technique. As a wrestler in open space, he's hit and miss. He can use his distance management, balance, and athleticism to defend takedowns well if he reads his opponent's intentions, but any good entry is likely to expose his lack of pure wrestling. Off his back, he's aggressive with elbows from the bottom and looks to use his legs aggressively to create space and get back to his feet. Despite his big actions and aggressive style, his cardio is at least okay, fading during the third round but still able to play his game. His sketchy defense inside the pocket and wrestling-wise are his biggest flaws. Against him we have Armen Petrosyan, a volume kickboxer. Petrosyan fights from range mostly behind his jab and solid leg kicks that he attacks to the outside and inside, using the inside leg kick as an alternative combo starter to his jab. Closing the distance, Petrosyan remains basic but effective, either attacking with 1-2s or alternating hooks while moving his head when the range is too close. Petrosyan usually does an excellent job of punishing exits with leg kicks and body kicks. While he can switch stances, he mostly fights out of his natural orthodox stance, keeping active lateral movement and feints. He's also a decent counter threat who tries to time cross counters from both sides and will use his lead hook to intercept incoming foes. And he does a good job of sneaking body kick and leg kicks mid combinations to force resets. He's also good at catching kicks and punishing with counters, be it with the hands or the legs, and he's an adept counter leg kicker as well. Petrosyan moves his head well, his footwork stays solid, but his jittery mechanics can punish him when he's pushed back, finding himself out of position, looking for clinches or for kicks to regain initiative. Strong inside the clinch, Petrosyan attacks with knees from a variety of grips and does a good job of pushing people against the fence and countering their movements with knees. He also has a good eye for hooks during breaks. As a grappler and wrestler, Petrosyan is solid. He defends takedowns well from open space, both with underhooks or whizzers on the first instance, and if he's pushed to the fence, he does a good job of using a knee shield to keep his hips safe before disarming grips and looking to regain the center of the cage. Nuanced or insistent grapplers have been able to drag him down, but he's solid on the ground, but he tends to expose his back when wall walking. Petrosyan will also mix in his own takedowns as a safety measure, or just for variety, and he's a decent top position grappler who can attack with elbows while maintaining position. And he doesn't try to hold opponents too hard, allowing get-ups and looking to punish in transition. Petrosyan is all around a very solid fighter, but he can lack dynamism and a lack of a second gear, which can cost him in close fights. Petrosyan once again finds himself as the straight man against a dynamic prospect. Last time out, he passed the test against Leroy Duncan with flying colors. Charabulet offers a similar but different challenge, while Duncan is more of an MMA native who spins a lot and can also mix up the clinch and transitions. Magomedov is a more comprehensive kicking threat out of range with more finesse than Duncan. That being said, Magomedov is also no slouch in the clinch unless he gets taken down, so it's on Petrosyan to use his leg kicks to not concede kicking range and use his fundamental boxing to punish the sketchy defense of the Russian. Magomedov remains dangerous throughout fights, and he might have more kickboxing experience than other fighters to trick the defense of Petrosyan, but I'm expecting the Armenian fighter to fight better, to put his game together better, to carry him to a victory. Mostly on the feet, but maybe with a few takedowns in between, so my pick is Petrosyan by decision. Big Savit time. I mean, that's kind of mean to Savit, because Savit was like a decent boxer and Charabulet can't box at all. And also Savit was a very good wrestler and Magomedov is not a good wrestler either. Yeah, I feel like Magomedov is decent. I mean, he's not terrible. And he does some cool stuff with the kicking. I feel like fighters that cannot box at all are kind of sketchy. I'm never like a huge fan, but Charabulet does some interesting stuff with his kicks. He's aggressive in the clinch, and I appreciate a guy that knows how to elbow inside the clinch. So I don't like the hype train. It's kind of like super annoying, but I feel like it's alright, man. It's like, he's okay. He's not bad. I feel like Petrosyan is very underrated, man. He's very solid. He's a guy that had a hard-fought fight against Hovokop and won. That's like the only guy in the division that has done that. Like, usually if you beat Hovokop, it's because you knock him out, right? That's the coward's way to beating Gregory Rodriguez, is to knock him out. Petrosyan did it like a man. He won a decision out of him. It's also mean to Savit because Savit is now a board-certified doctor. He's like an MD? Dr. Savit? Like are people making like crazy edits of like Dr. House with Savit's face or some shit like that? I bet there's some weirdo out there doing that. I'm sure there's a weirdo out there doing that. Anyway, let's get to the next one. We have like heavyweight, so everyone, let's get going because we have like heavyweight. This one is funny because I feel like most of my audience hate both these guys. So it's going to be funny. We move up one more time to light heavyweight for a bout between Magomed Ankalaev and Alexander Rakic. Let's begin with Ankalaev. A southpaw kickboxer and wrestler, Ankalaev fights heavy on his front foot, constantly fighting hands with his very sharp lead right hand, firing jabs as soon as his opponent tries to step in on the outside angle, and chasing it up with his sharp right hook that he throws from inside and outside foot position. A stabbing snap kick to the body and hard roundhouse to the body and legs allow him to establish the range that he wants, while he tries to line up his dangerous right left that he usually throws as a quick 1-2 or delaying his rhythm after a double or triple jab while adjusting his feet. Usually a bit of a slow starter, Ankalaev takes a bit to make his read and establish distance, and he has been somewhat easy to pressure in the early going of a fight, but once he starts defending kicks with his lead leg knee lift, being able to check both leg kicks and middle kicks, he's the one usually moving forwards. Defense is a strong point. While he has been susceptible to leg kicks in the past, most notably in his title fight against Blachowicz, his kicks defense is above average, able to check high and stepping into counters, and also having decent kick catching skills. His footwork is his main line of defense, and his positioning in the pocket is usually on point, and he selects his counters accordingly, usually relying on his aforementioned right hook to scare foes off. Head movement is not very nuanced, and while he can attack with pull counters or get his head off center line with his left hand, his head can become static with his chin high up during chaotic exchanges. He will see tasks at times, usually to open up pressuring options, and he's been competent from orthodox. Strong inside the pocket, Ankalaev usually doesn't spend prolonged time in there, but he uses his footwork well to win position, and he's very dangerous with hooks off breaks. These same hooks appear when he's able to grab single collar ties when the distance is collapsed during an exchange. A good wrestler, Ankalaev is the owner of a quick shot, usually finishing single legs in open space, but he can also drive people to the fence to finish strips there, and while there's not a lot in the way of setup with his striking, he does uses his feints and timing to find opportune moments to shot. From top position, Ankalaev is heavy with solid fundamentals of passing and is punishing with ground and pound, especially if he gets wrist control in some form. Ankalaev is tough, durable, and conditioned. Other than being a slow starter, Ankalaev has had trouble not taking the easiest route to victory and cruising when he feels like he has too much of a lead, which can lead in lapses of sketchy defense or inactivity. Against him we have Rakic, a straightforward but athletic, well-rounded kickboxer. Rakic seems to be risk-averse nowadays. He likes to control fights from range, fighting behind lead shoulder feints, his stiff long jab, and most importantly, powerful leg kicks that he set up with his hands pretty well. He does have a lot of dynamism, and he used to be a lot more aggressive with shifting entries into big right hands, long rear uppercuts, flying knees, and was constantly looking to set up his vicious high kick. But he seems to be a lot more reserved as of now. Rakic moves well around in open space, and his distance management and timing are key to his success, as he usually enjoys a length advantage and is one of the fastest guys in the division. When he tries to extend combination, things can get a bit messy, but he packs a lot of power in his right hand that he can find after his jab or to counter an incoming opponent. Anything past the third punch is a gamble since he holds his chin high up in the air and his feet lose positioning, but he does have a decent sense of cagecraft and tries to keep his back off the fence even during chaotic exchanges. He has good vision to pull back from attacks and duck when he's reacting, but this can fall apart during prolonged exchanges. His defense is a lot cleaner when he has the initiative, and he collapses distance proactively to pivot with clinches to subsequently disengage. A well put together wrestler and grappler, aided by his size and athleticism, Rakic has a quick entry to his single leg, and he can finish a number of different ways, and he can also surprise with a trip from inside the clinch. From top position, he also has been conservative in the last few years, opting for heavy control while chipping away with constant ground pound. His submission defense is solid, even when defending leg entanglements, and he uses front headlock well to retain or achieve top position. Rakic has all the attributes to be a top fighter, but he has yet to find a balance between winning moment by moment and actually taking over fights with damage. And while his straightforward approach has flexibility built into it, he can struggle to adjust when he is in need of a different set of tactics. Durability and cardio seem to be fine. This is a fight in which both guys like to keep it simple and like to punish bad habits, so it will be interesting to see how they approach a similarly big athletic guy who is also careful with opening up. While Rakic has historically been the more dynamic and wild fighter, I think Ankalaev who is more effective opening up with more damaging offense nowadays, and he's better equipped to do so as he has more setups to his disposal. This is an open stance matchup, so the leg kick battle will also be curious. Johnny Walker took a leg kicking approach against Ankalaev in his last fight, probably looking to emulate the success of Jan Blachowicz. While Ankalaev absorbed a good amount of damage there, he was also able to check and counter a good number of leg kicks and was himself the more damaging leg kicker in that matchup. Rakic in his last fight crippled Jiří Procházka, but fell apart when he got pressured. I think Ankalaev is past the point of being dealt with just leg kicks, and his bag of tricks is a lot deeper than Rakic when it comes to landing offense. And he's also the more fundamentally sound defensive fighter when things get dirty, so my pick is that Ankalaev gets a knockout on the second round. James says, what is the hardest part of making reads as an analyst? Is it finding habits and seeing how they match up with other fighters? I think I gotta agree with Dan Albert. I feel like identifying habits can be a bit of an easier thing. It's like, I think it's like getting into the mind of a fighter, like what this fighter wants to do, identifying the process. That can be like the hardest thing, especially when you have limited footage about a fighter. But it's also like, I feel like it's very underrated when it comes to analysis. Like, just not like do like, oh, in this exchange this happened, but it's also like this fighter wants to do this, and the ideal fight for this fighter looks like this. And when a fight gets hard, this fighter does this or does that. I feel like when you know that, you have an actual like very good read on a fighter. But it always depends, because like you can do analysis just for the sake of technique. So when someone posts a clip and just describes the actions, I feel like that's fine. People hate on it, right? But I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like just naming techniques can be a bit lame, but if you explain like the why of a single thing, it's nothing wrong with that. It's very useful to learn, to apply new techniques or to do stuff. So I think that's very valuable too. It's different to making like a matchup analysis or like a deep dive into the career of a fighter, or like very different things. Go says, I love how Rakic hurt Jiri with a double jab into an elbow. That somehow disadvantaged. Yeah, man, it was crazy because like Jiri was like doing well, and Rakic was doing well. Jiri was not doing anything, and then like Jiri opened up the pressure, and Rakic fell apart hard, man. It was very weird. Pivot, James mentioned earlier, but why do you think it makes people so angry? Like you said, it. I feel like the pivots make people mad because it's like they. Okay, this is like, obviously I don't know for sure, right? But I feel like people project that when, like, for example, the Miguel clip, like, oh, when a fighter starts doing this, like the Usyk, it's all over. It's like they feel like Miguel is saying that fighters are stupid or that they don't know what they're doing, and that's not it. Like, sometimes you can identify a tactic that, hey, a lot of fighters would be better off if they did a little bit more of this, right? I feel like some people that do not have like very, very comprehensive knowledge of combat sports, they feel like we at Twitter, like the guys analysts, we are being like just saying stuff, right? Like, oh, the coaches are experts, they know better. The fighters are the experts, right? Because in other sports, it's like not a lot of people are analysts, right? But I feel like in combat sport, you have like so much footage and history to go by. Like, there's so many like old school boxing fights, old school kickboxing fights, old school Muay Thai. You have so much wrestling footage from all the Olympics, folk style wrestling from the US. So it is very easy to identify like a lot of fundamental techniques that just translate from sport to sport. So it's obviously, and the other thing is that I feel like people are pretty bad at identifying like hyperbole, because like it's obviously that the fighter with good pivots is not just going to win with pivots, right? You have to do more on top of that. But I don't know, people just like to get angry, like they just like to project things that aren't there in the tweet. Like, I often, like, as I said, like, I sometimes just post a clip like, oh, look at this fighter doing this. And that's not analysis. I'm not claiming that that's analysis, right? And people still are like, they quote tweet me and they are like they are tagging Jack Slack, who retweets me all the time, right? So, and they're like, oh, look at this moron that he thinks he's doing analysis. I'm like, bro, chill. It's just a clip. If you want to see my analysis, I have like articles, I have a bunch of videos on YouTube. So if you want my real analysis, you can listen to this podcast too. It's just silly, man. Like, people people are very jealous when they, especially when something gets a lot of likes. People get so angry. I have never had like a successful thread on Twitter that didn't get like hate in some way or another. So yeah, let's get into. Okay, we have just 3 fights left, so let's hurry up a little bit. And next one, we have a featherweight fight between Lerone Murphy and Dan Ige. Let's begin with Murphy. An athletic all-rounder, Murphy can do a bit of everything more than just fight, but he makes the most of his work as a boxer. Constant training and a steady diet of jabs lay the foundation for Murphy's game. He keeps his opponent on their toes, feigning effectively from both sides and parrying his jab with a long overhand or straight right hand and calf kicks. And his left hook is quick to follow if opponents back up, or is ready to intercept if they try to close in recklessly. Somewhat of a slow starter, Murphy begins fights with a steady volume, but his accuracy and shot selection usually get better as fight progresses. Once Murphy gets foes reacting to his feints and has his jab timing on point, he will push opponent to the fence to open up with longer combinations, punishing the body and punishing circling with wide hands. And he can also find new targets for his kicks from both sides. Spacing and hiding behind his lead shoulder are the main source of defense for Murphy, who complements his defense with solid footwork and cage awareness. A solid wrestler, Murphy can be surprising open space during transitions, but he's usually a solid takedown defender, grabbing a whizzer and angling out of attempts. When taken down, he's urgent about getting up, either turtling or using the whizzer to wall walk. He can expose himself to back body locks and mat returns with both methods, though. From top, he's very heavy and goes for big ground and pound, and while this can give space for opponents to get up, he makes sure to make his damage count. Murphy has been hurt in the past, but his recovery has been solid, and his cardio has consistently been a strong point. Decision making can be sketchy, and he can be open for aggressive fighters in the early going of fights, but he has proven hard to finish and gets better as fights go on. Against him we have Ige, a stocky, athletic and well-rounded. Ige is now a veteran of 17 UFC fights, mostly unorthodox. Ige fights at range behind feints and big single strike, forcing their opponents to lead for counter opportunities or to close the distance aggressively. Ige is known for his shifting entries, mostly to set up his left hand, putting multiple punches together while switching stances, often attacking body and head. Ige is content pressuring or fighting at neutral space, getting into exchanges, as he is a boxer puncher by trade. Stiff kicks allow him to compete at range, but the lack of a nuanced jab can translate in him having trouble maintaining a steady pace and closing the distance against longer or mobile foes. On the counter, he's dangerous with both hands, and once again, opponents need to be wary of his left hook. Ige makes the most of his counter opportunities, attacking in combination and tracking fleeing opponents with big strikes. A solid wrestler, Ige is constantly changing levels into strikes, and that on top of his stocky frame means he's good at setting up powerful double leg takedowns in open space. He can have trouble getting denied early on shots, ending up on the bottom fighting from the get up though. He's also content to grind single and doubles against the fence if the situation calls for it, and his physical strength and cardio shine in those situations. From top, Ige is punishing with ground pound, especially if he gets opponents stacked against the fence, and his submission defense has been outstanding, having never been submitted despite engaging in grappling with the likes of Korean Zombie, Diego Lopez, and Bryce Mitchell. Ige is dangerous using transitions to his favor, but has been surprised by transition from his opponents. Dan Ige is durable, powerful, and conditioned, but he can fail to make adjustments outside of his wheelhouse in close fights, and he's usually a bigger finishing threat early in fights. A high-profile fight at 145, this pits the tricky and crafty veteran savvy of Ige against the process-driven and fundamentally sound Murphy. One surprising thing about this fight is that both guys are the same age. Murphy is less than a month older, actually. That being said, Ige has 7 more fights to his name, including 11 more UFC fights, and has been fighting a higher level of opposition, and has clearly more miles on his body if we go by fights alone. As the undefeated Murphy has not absorbed nearly the same amount of damage. Experience and age aside, the constructing styles here might give us a hint at the dynamics. Murphy is a slow starter and usually gets better as fight go on. Ige's power and speed make him dangerous early, and while he doesn't tire, his explosive style and tricky entries can become less effective as fight go on if he's not taking over fights. Ige can still surprise late, be it with takedowns or with his power that he carries late into fights, but if Murphy is able to pass the early stages of the fight without absorbing much damage, I can see him taking over with his jab, frustrating Ige's entries, and countering when he tries to close the distance. My pick is Murphy wins a decision. We go back to the chat. Ronan says, I remember some people said that fighters don't know what they're doing in small exchanges, so it doesn't matter to break it down. That's just I mean, that's completely silly because, like, I mean, there are fighters that just have like good instincts, right? But they, when they do stuff that it's right, it's because they learn either via being like taught by a trainer or be experienced during sparring, right? But they know deep inside, and I feel like people really overrate fighters are not thinking at all inside the cage. It's all instincts. That's bullshit, man. I feel like a lot of people that haven't fought think that, and this is not like, oh, have you trained, bro? But to be honest, like when you're in a fight and you have like a coherent game going on, there's actually a lot of thinking going on. It's obviously like you still do a lot of stuff out of instincts because you have drilled so much, but the decision making is not automatic. You gotta think about stuff during a fight. When Jose Aldo, for example, he goes to a flow chart defensively, like he goes like a slip, lean back, pivot. Okay, that sequence is ingrained into his brain, but he still has to make the decision of doing those movements. It's not like his body moves his body moves by its own during that moment, right? I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of feeling involved into being a good fighter, but there's a lot of thinking too. And you see with fighters that are like overthinkers inside the cage, like you have like the Leon Edwards, the Caio Bojalios, who are very good fighters, but they think too much. And that can be a bad thing, but you need to think a little bit. Not everything is automatic inside the cage. There's a lot of thinking going on. And if you listen to fighters that have like very cerebral styles, they can break it down like super well. MMA fighters are kind of secretive about it, so they don't want to reveal the secrets. But like if you listen to like Floyd Mayweather talk, Floyd Mayweather, like people think he's dumb. He's just ignorant, but that dude's smart, man. When you hear him talk about fighting, that's smart dude. Like he knows what he's doing inside the cage and he's thinking about it. Obviously there's a lot of like drilling, there's a lot of like innate reactions of his body, but there's a lot of thinking, and I feel people underrate that. Okay. Krish Kushman says MMA is constantly evolving. Yeah, for sure, man. It's just such a young sport, right? Shriram says, LeBron is so cool, wish he got the big step up that Lopez did, but matchmakers are biased towards dynamic guys and against Leon Edwards if he were Kevin Kidd. Dr. John says, Murphy has kept winning and winning, but just hasn't managed to impress. I felt like the Barbosa win was pretty impressive. I thought it's just like a very well put together game. Rio Sosen says, was Ige versus Zombie surprising to you? Because Ige is super talented, but has lost to watch Zombie. Yeah, it was. I was very surprised at that one, to be honest. I thought like Zombie was like pretty past it, and Ige. I feel like what did Ige the most in that fight, what played against him, is that he didn't adapt, because it was clear that Ige came into that fight with the idea of wrestling, and late career Korean Zombie, such a good wrestler, so he couldn't take him down at all, and Ige kept going for the takedowns, and got tired doing that. And also like the big entries play straight into the counter punching of Korean Zombie, so on hindsight it makes sense, but I gotta admit I was very surprised when that happened. Hacks, hello Hacks, how you doing, man? He says, honestly, it feels criminal Ige hasn't focused more on parlaying his left hook into takedowns and ground pound, since he's almost always closing the distance anyway. Yeah, I mean, he usually like goes for the double leg of the right hand, so he should use the left hook more. It's always guys who train but haven't competed at the top level in anything that say that low, like screams like, yeah, it's pretty much, it's like low level people. It's not that, I don't say this like as an insult, but it's like when you have only trained for a few months or maybe a few years in some cases, you think that all fighters are like an autopilot, everything is instincts inside the cage. But like the more you understand, I feel like the more I got into training, the more I thought inside fights. And like thinking inside a fight is not wrong, man. Like that's how you make reads, that's how you make the right decisions. Shriam says, always wanted to talk to like a Sun Sao or a guy like that who spends most of his fight just using his brain. Yeah, I would be very, very intrigued to talk to a guy like a Sun Sao, yeah, or a guy like Leon Edwards. I don't know if they can verbalize, but I know there's a lot of thinking inside the cage. Hack says he's a bit of a psycho, right? His style is so good at neutralizing opponent volume that he buys himself for more time to think. Yep. It's pretty. That's an interesting way to put it for sure. So let's get into the co-main. Our co-main event of the evening is a special attraction because we have a 5-round fight that it's not for the title. We have Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whittaker against Khamzat Chimaev. I won't do a profile for these fighters, so let's take about the fight. I have some thoughts here written down, so let's go through them. While both fighters have shown to have shots of their own on the other guy's wheelhouse, it is hard to imagine Whittaker versus Chimaev not playing out like a classic striker versus grappler matchup, and one where the grappler needs to win quick. Chimaev has shown to be a competent and, more importantly, a powerful and dangerous striker the few times he hasn't been able to run over someone, and Whittaker has defended against credentialed wrestlers and grapplers in the past, but this is still a noteworthy matchup in the career of the two. For Chimaev, this is plain and simple the best striker he has faced, and one with wrestling chops to keep it on the feet no less. And while the Chechen has held his own on the feet against the likes of Aliskerov, Burns, and Usman, you gotta consider that they are all grapplers first. Bobby Knuckles might be the first one that might offer a similar level of resistance in the grappling, but also a higher level of comfort and technique on the feet. Whittaker has defended takedowns and has survived on the ground against fighters like Bronson, Romero, and Jacare, but Chimaev offers a unique blend of wrestling potency and imminent danger on the ground. The Australian has been very hard to take down, but not impossible. But he has been able to use his grappling to survive sketchy moments on the mat. Chimaev is the first fighter that is a consistent finishing threat on the grappling department that Whittaker has faced since Jacare, and while Chimaev might not be as credentialed on the ground, he's a superior wrestler to the Brazilian, plain and simple, and that might mean that he will get easier access to worse positions for the striker. Tactics and technique-wise, Chimaev usually shoots at the legs, and while he can finish a tremendous double leg, against most competent wrestlers he's quick to climb up with an underhook, usually with on his right side, and from there looks to leave to the body lock or the high crotch. From body lock, he's resourceful and quick to attack with trips and hip blocks, on swimming to the back from where he can attack with powerful mat returns. Any takedown attempt that forces opponents to post on the ground to build their bases is a success for Chimaev, as attacking with a single leg right is one of his go-tos to break posture and establish control on the ground. And unlike other Russian wrestlers of today who also lack leg rights, Chimaev is also very comfortable fully taking the back with hooks or a body triangle as well. Whittaker, on his part, fights very hard for underhooks and uses the whizzer effectively as well during scrambles. He does resort to turn his back to create space and get away on the feet and to build his base and stand up on the ground, but he usually does so with an arm at play to give him some sort of defense. From open space, he's quick to play his stance and tries to kill the shot early with underhooks or whizzers. If the opponent gets any deep, he'll feed the single leg and will try to limp leg using the whizzer to open up space. Whittaker also has a very good awareness with his hips, tries to stay higher than his opponents, and is quick to post wide and to build a base and always have an arm involved just like against the fence. On the feet, Chimaev is straightforward, but he has good qualities. He feints and moves his head at range, and he has a quick solid jab complemented by his long frame. He's also a quick kicker who will use the snap kick to the body to pressure and the high kick to stand up opponents. And all of this allow him to time his takedowns well. And as we talked about, he doesn't need a perfect shot with his speed and tenacious change wrestling. Whittaker is comfortable fighting from a longer distance than one would expect, and his blitzing style can come in handy to annoy unexperienced strikers, as the constant fades and variety are glued by a very good jab. He adapts to opponents' reactions well and layers his offense as fight progresses. There's two big factors in this fight. First is Whittaker's fighting age. While Bobby is still only 33 years old, not only he's 33 fights into his pro career, but has spent a long amount of those fighting a very high level of opposition. By all accounts, he should be the more shop-worn fighter inside the cage. Chimaev has been dealing with a number of illnesses and injuries, so it's hard to tell in what form he's going to show up, but so far, every time he steps in the octagon, he looks like himself. And with only 13 fights to his name, and only one in which he took a big amount of damage, it is safer to expect Chimaev to look like Chimaev, all things considered. The second one is that this fight is 5 rounds. Chimaev doesn't have one round cardio like some people say. While fans can argue that he lost against Gilbert Burns and only went to a draw with Usman, and I would agree with them, reality is that despite clearly fading, he didn't completely fall apart, having a competitive third round with Burns and was able to take Usman down in the final stanza of their bout. The thing is that he does fade, and 5 rounds are a whole different animal than 3 when it comes to conditioning. Whittaker might be a tad slower and less durable than in his prime, but he keeps being a fighter that only gets better as fight go on, but who maintains output. In other words, cardio has never been an issue for the Australian. It really feels like a 2-outcome fight. Either Chimaev finishes with his grappling early or Whittaker outlasts him. And while Burns has a lot going on for him in this matchup and Whittaker might be on the way down, the performances against Burns and Usman aren't exactly inspiring when it comes to winning a 5-round fight if it goes the distance. So I think I have a gut feeling that Chimaev wins this, but if I go by analysis, I would have to see it. I gotta pick Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker wins a decision. Okay, let's get back to the shot. Is wrestling really labor intensive? James Kendrick asks. It depends. Chimaev has very good technique, but he is a physical wrestler. He likes to muscle people off. He has good technique, but the takedown selection that Chimaev uses, the polished throws, the high crush lifts, are very tiring because they are strength based. He needs good technique. His good technique allows him to get good finishes on his takedowns, but those are takedowns that you don't do when you are not a strong fighter. So I feel like Chimaev's cardio cannot be that bad. Is that he goes for very, very physically taxing takedowns. I would describe it like that. Sriram says, week number 2 in a row of a guy with a mega sang sprint wrestling a dude named Rob and then getting jabbed around the cage. Ideal. Hopefully. Go says, the co-main is interesting to me because a lot of campsite entries are terrible and relies on cage position since he can use the fence as a way to climb the body lock. Chimaev's wrestling game is very MMA based. He uses the cage a lot. I post a clip of him taking down Usman and he shots but just clings into the ankle, and then he climbs to the high crotch and he's not finishing the high crotch. What he does is he pushes Kamaru against the fence, and when he pushes against the fence, his feet get together and he goes for the double from there. And that's great awareness by Chimaev. He relies a lot on the cage, and Whittaker is a guy that uses the cage a lot to his favor. I feel that in that sense, the matchup favors Chimaev, but he needs to get consistent with it if he doesn't get the finish early, right? Rio says, should Whittaker just focus on hitting the body since Kamsat's style is one and done in the first round? I feel like Whittaker needs to find a way to go to the body. The thing that Whittaker doesn't have a lot of reliable body attacks. He can kick with the front kick. He can go with the body jab. But he's those are not like super comfortable tools for him. We have seen him even like go left hook to the body in some exchanges, but you can tell that that's not like his thing, his number one thing. So yeah, I really want Whittaker to go to the body here, but I'm not sure if he has the tools to do it like as consistently as you would like to. But yeah, I feel like he should go to the body for sure. Betting community is a mess, man. I would not comment on that. I'm not a bettor, so I'd rather not get into that. Hitting Hamza, but yeah, one thing with hitting the Chimaev to the body is that you can expose yourself to front headlock, and Chimaev hasn't shown a lot of front headlock, but he looks very strong from there, so might be dangerous. And Chimaev is also like a wild man. He will throw the head kicks and the flying knees, so you can like change levels like as easily, right? Damalver says Chimaev fights well tired, but Rob continues to maintain consistency, building tools as things go. So huge question of Chimaev's dynamism. Yep. I feel like Chimaev is for sure. If this goes wrong, like Chimaev for sure loses a few rounds. He might like steal like around 3 or 4 with a takedown, maybe if he shows up in great shape. But I feel like Chimaev's style is just like not built to fight for 5 rounds. Yeah, I feel it's a very good cagecraft test for both. Yeah, I agree with that, Hacks. It's like Whittaker will demand more creativity for Chimaev, especially because, but at the same time, like Rob, I feel like will be more aggressive. It's probably more. It will probably open more options. I feel like Usman was very tentative, even though he didn't need to be, because actually Chimaev didn't counter his striking attacks with takedowns. So I feel like Usman should have opened up way more. He was winning the striking every time that he went for it. So yeah, let's finally get into the main event. So let's go for it. And with that, we get to the main event, the fight that we have all been waiting for. This one is fantastic. We have Ilia Topuria El Matador against blessed Max Holloway. It is a fantastic fight, so let's get into that. Finally, the main event is a dream for all the nerds. Topuria and Holloway is one of those fights where both are not only some of the best strikers in the sport, but they are 2 of the most exciting as well, making this the most anticipated fight of the year for many, me included. A lot of the intrigue about this matchup comes from the Holloway side, as he is tactically very flexible, and the way he approaches the matchup might be key in deciding the winner. Holloway has gone a bit away from his former style that allowed him to win the title against Jose Aldo, but he remains a tremendous volume fighter, who is adaptable and layered with his offense. Topuria, on the other hand, is a huge puncher who brings a lot of good boxing to the table, and while he's more than competent at range, he makes most of his effective work when he pressures opponents to defense, forcing exchanges to find a home for his fight-ending hooks, packing fight-ending power and skill in both hands. One would imagine that Topuria is going to move forwards while Holloway will ironically play the Matador on the outside. From there's many questions that we can ask. How much is Holloway going to kick? Is he going to try to control exchanges or avoid them? Is clinching something either will try to impose? Kicking is interesting, as kicks can extend the effective range of a fighter, but can also offer an easy entry to a puncher of a miscalculation. Linear kicks would definitely be a good idea for Max in here. His hoping side kick to the knee would be a good tool to force Topuria into circling and alleviate the pressure, and he can kick high off the side kick entry like he did against Volkanovski on their second fight. While obviously not all exchanges can be avoided, Holloway needs to make the decision of using the distance, pot shotting and limiting exchanges as much as possible, or setting exchanges under his own terms often and control them. He certainly has shown the ability to play both games. If he decides to not engage, Holloway can stay long behind his jabs and kicks and counter and move after any illy attempt at closing the distance, eventually getting to move forward if he reverses position with his feet and starts backing up the Spanish with kicks. On the other hand, Holloway might try to use his feints and jab to create exchanges under his own terms, drawing the counters of Topuria, evading and countering before forcing resets with his left hook or his close side body kick. Something akin to what he did against Justin Gaethje in his last fight. Volume is also an interesting question. While one would expect Max to be the busier fighter, is he going to try to impose a pace on Topuria? Holloway has been content later into his career to win on volume and damage without necessarily going out of his way to drown opponents. And in this fight, it is a gamble worth considering. Giving Topuria too much counter opportunities is obviously dangerous, but getting him tired can pay off big time late into the fight. Topuria's gas tank looked perfectly fine over 5 rounds against Emmett in a fight in which he didn't lack any volume and had some big moments with Topuria looking for a finish. So you would almost excuse him for getting tired, but he wasn't getting tired. But alas, that was a fight where he had pretty much complete control of the pace and was ahead the whole time. If we go back a little, Topuria was notably tired in his 3rd round against Leal. And even though that was a long time ago, it's worth keeping in mind. His cardio is probably not on Holloway's league. How Topuria goes about pressuring will be interesting here. Topuria is the owner of solid pressuring footwork and has good timing and instincts about when to close the distance, and he makes the most out of any exchange. Against Volkanovski, he shows some solid calf kicks, and his straight punches to the body are always a good tool to push people back, but Holloway's lateral movement and generalship in neutral space is very good, and he will have to push harder and take risks if he wants to expose the sketchiest moments of the Hawaiian's footwork. Topuria might play a more patient counter-pressure style, staying in front of Holloway, forcing him to lead, waiting for opportunities to counter and make his charge against the fence, something the Korean Zombie had limited success against Holloway, and a plan Topuria seems better equipped to implement. If he decides to push harder, he cannot ignore Holloway counters on entry, especially the right uppercut into left hook that stopped Volkanovski in his tracks numerous times against Max. Topuria is not impossible to back up himself, and while he's defensively solid, his straight retreats are punishable by the 1-2-1s and the spinning back kick of Holloway. Topuria, I feel, does have an advantage in straight exchanges as the tighter and more powerful puncher. His right hook might be the right hand that for once catches Holloway over the top inside the pocket, as Holloway has usually been caught on the top of the head by loopy right hands by the likes of Aldo, Zombie, and Gaethje. Topuria's tight right hook might find a target others has failed to do, and his left hook to both levels will also be notable. First to the body, as Holloway's long torso will be an available target, and it will help Topuria with controlling the exchanges, closing the door for him, but also leaping or shifting left upstairs, as Holloway's retreats can, and as Holloway when retreating can worry about checking hands, and looping shots can catch him when covering distance, like Dustin Poirier did numerous times in their lightweight bout. On top of all of this, we have the X factors, right? One is Topuria's grappling. Holloway has been incredibly hard to take down with very strong hips and good grip fighting. Fighters have failed to muscle him against defense, even with perceived strength advantages like Poirier and Volkanovski. Topuria is a very pure wrestler than them, and his level change both on reaction and against defense is very solid. Both guys are high level grapplers, but there's gotta be an edge to Topuria if he ends up on top. But we cannot ignore Holloway's front chokes, especially if Topuria goes for like a Neal advice shot late into the fight. Most importantly, there's age and wear and tear, right? Topuria is only 27 years old, undefeated in his 15-fight career against the 32 years old veteran of 33 fights in Holloway. Holloway doesn't look too off of the fighter that beat Jose Aldo to win the title, but there are some signs of a slight decline. He's still fast and sharp, but despite being more defensively oriented lately, he has been hittable by fighters who offer a good mix of fundamentals and tricks. We saw Max get hurt against Poirier numerous times, and Gaethje and Zombie found the mark numerous times too. While Holloway is obviously still very durable, some shots are affecting him like they didn't in the past. and his reactions time might be ever so slightly off of what once was. If the fight goes long, I think the craft and adaptability of Holloway can give him the edge, but we also saw Holloway fail to find answers against quick and sharp Volkanovski on their third meeting. He adapted but was simply too far behind to start winning rounds. I think Holloway has the tools to be a bad matchup for Topuria, but in this moment in time, I think it is El Matador who has the better cards. My final pick is Topuria, who becomes the first fighter to stop Holloway with strikes with a second round knockout. And that's my final pick. Let's get back to the chat. The other thing is there's a lot of fighters who look pretty good to even greater fight if the fight is in their wheelhouse, but are a mess under the mental physical strain if they have to work that. That's very true. Ghost says the main event is the hypest fight. So many new things in this fight. Yeah, it's tremendous, man. I have a very hard time to like make concise points about this, because it's like there's like so much stuff that you can talk about in this fight, right? Because you can go like about the tactics, about strategy. You can go into the details. Like for example, like I mentioned, like Holloway might land that right high kick over the shoulder roll of Topuria. Holloway has been like countered with the jab, and Topuria has a very hard jab, right? The right hand over the top. Holloway has been very hard to hit with the right hand over the top historically, but Topuria has a right tight hook that the other fighters didn't have. So there's a lot of like super small details that we could talk about, but I wanted to talk like a more like big picture stuff. I feel like I mentioned quite a few number of like nuanced tactics and techniques on the breakdown, but it was like a very hard breakdown to make. I hope you guys like I make you guys think about a few things. Rio says, would you personally advise Holloway to initiate clinches like the fake tip into the left? Yeah, I didn't cover that, but I think clinches by Holloway would be interesting, but he needs to be careful with the hooks of Topuria inside the clinch. Like he's a tight boxer, like he can mess you up, even especially he has like that powerful left hook to the body. Some guys just can generate power inside the collar ties, right? Phantom says, something I didn't touch in my thread was Holloway's ability in open stance. I think that could be a good idea. Yeah, I mean, Dan Tom was saying that. Dan Tom, who is here, by the way, again. But just to say what's up to all the Protect Your Neck crew. I've been here seeing homies like Dan, A, and Hags. Hope everything is well. I'm super glad to have you around, man. Protect your neck for life, man. Protect your neck. And to follow up on something I said earlier, things Gold brought it up. Sopa takes away the calf kicks. Apparently the jab of Topuria. Yeah, man. I feel like Topuria has like decent pressure footwork against southpaws, but he loses a lot of like the pressure in striking that makes his game so good, right? Both lack body attacks, but the greater trade-off on Mac's side on paper. Yeah, I feel like Holloway might be shy about going southpaw here because he might be like not very confident about his defense. I feel that's why I didn't give too many thoughts about Holloway. Might switch though, but I don't feel like he's going to go like a full round southpaw. I doubt he's going to do that at this stage of his career, especially. Then Albert says, I think the bottom line about this fight is that if there's a fighter who can show how deep some of the Topuria nuances go, it's probably Holloway. Yeah, for sure. I mean, bulk is not as good of a kicker as Max Holloway, but I feel like when it comes to leg kicks, I feel like Volkanovski has the leg up against Volkanovski, to be honest. If Topuria can efficiently navigate going first and space for how engagement goes, this fight, yeah. Yeah, but Holloway, if you pressure him hard, like Holloway like sidesteps very well, but one thing that Holloway lacks is like pivots under high pressure moments. Like he needs the space to circle to navigate. He as Ryan Wagner said, he tends to look like Barbosa in those sketchy moments, and you don't want to be Barbosa when you're fighting Ilia Topuria, right? This would be like even better fight if Max was a bit younger, because I feel like Max is getting hittable, and like he was like lucky enough to not get hit by anything huge by Gagey and Zombie, but he was getting hit hard by Poirier, right? I feel like Holloway is still very hard to finish, but if you hurt him, you can like get a leg up, like we saw in that third Volkanovski fight, right? Volkanovski like being sharper, just getting to the chin. He was making Max Holloway think twice. It was like the most vulnerable we've seen Max Holloway look in a fight. Yeah, it's the thing that Holloway has looked very, very good moving around the cage, but not against someone that can cut the cage quite like Topuria, right? Because Topuria offers not only the footwork, but he has like he punches both ways very effectively, and he puts like coherent combinations together. Like being a combination puncher, we saw what being a combination puncher accomplished for Dustin Poirier. Obviously, Poirier and Topuria are like very different boxers, but they have some similarities in that they are like these ambidextrous combinations punchers, right? So that's all very interesting. I'll get to the outro of the podcast, and we'll go back to, and I'll go back to say goodbye and all that stuff. So you guys can shut for a little while. And with that, we get to the end of the pay-per-view. Honestly, this main event, I felt like I could have said so many things, but I felt like I hopefully I make you guys consider a few things. Obviously, there's a lot that I left out. What if Holloway goes southpaw? It's a thing that I don't think like he's going to do like long time. The clinching. But overall, I feel like I covered a lot of dynamics that could go on in this fight. I'm very excited. This is one of the best fights that could be made in MMA right now, and I'm just so excited about it. At the pay-per-view, like, it is okay. Let's just get back into what fights I think are going to be good. When it comes to action, like Bruno Silva versus Naurdiev is going to be fine, I feel. Fakhretdinov versus Leal is going to be interesting because Leal is a strong defending takedowns. Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo maybe could be good because Victor Hugo can defend a takedown. Abus versus Bruno Ferreira is going to be violent. Orolbai versus Rebecki is a very good fight. To be honest, Chara Bullet versus Petrosyan is not bad, man. That's a good fight. Ankalaev versus Rakic is intriguing, and it's important in the division. And if Ankalaev wins, like, you cannot deny the title shot anymore, right? Murphy versus EJ is money, one of the best ones in the card. And then you have like Whittaker versus Chimaev, and the main event obviously is a fantastic fight. So overall, I feel like this is a very strong pay-per-view. The matchmaking is very solid, with the exception of Jeff Neal against Rafael dos Anjos, that I think is like the bad fight over here. I'm okay even with the heavyweight fight. It's not like super stacked, but the top three fights are the top four. The top four are like all important and compelling and good fights. So I'm all for this pay-per-view. I like it. And as I said, like you could put like all the worst fights possible, and if you give me this main event, you have me eating out of your hand because this fight is so fucking good. So yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me, those that are right now here live. And if you're listening to the recorded version, thank you as well. Remember that if you want to support the Fight Sites as an ongoing project, you can head over to Patreon. You can give me a little bit of money, and in exchange you get access to exclusive content, to our Discord server, all very cool stuff. Follow me on Twitter if you don't already. You probably do. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'll be talking about the fights throughout the week and during the fights themselves. So thank you so much, everyone, and I'll catch you on the next one. This is Feño signing out. Bye. Okay, that's the recorded version of the podcast. Let's catch up with the chat a little bit. Topuria himself has worry with his own cagecraft. Yeah, I feel like Topuria, when pushed back, has looked sketchy at times. Topuria, great analysis from Feño and all the sharp folks in the chat. This fight even got my burnout. Yeah, man, Danton, man. I hope I'll be talking with you during the fights. Don't think you're going to be safe, man. Or maybe I'll have you to talk about some fights after the. Maybe we can do some podcasting together after the fight. You said you were going to be available for appearances, even though you're retired, my bro. Ghost says, why are so many pundits concerned about GOAT conversation about the main event? I don't feel, man. I feel when the careers are going on, I don't even like consider the GOAT things. It's a lot easier to say. I mean, the GOAT conversation in general is kind of silly, but if you want to talk about it, like, you better like wait till the career of a fighter is over, like at least the meaningful part of the career of a guy is over. Like for Jose Aldo, like we can evaluate Khabib right now, right? And like Khabib is very good, but I feel like he lacked some more important matchups to be considered the best ever. But yeah, it's all subjective. It's just like it's not something that you should like take very seriously. James Kendrick says, will you be paying for this pay-per-view? I'm kinda pay for all pay-per-views because over here in Chile, I pay like $15 for Fight Pass, Fight Pass Premium, and it comes with all the pay-per-views. So I watch all the pay-per-views legally, but obviously paying a lot less money than people in the United States or other countries. So yeah, I'll be paying for the pay-per-view, but I will not be paying full American price for it because I'm not in the USA. Ronan, DM me, and we can arrange something. I do have a coffee page if anyone wants to send me money, by the way. James, I think the VPNs Fight Pass is very good about blocking VPNs, so it's probably not going to work. I've heard that no VPN works with Fight Pass. It has like very good protection for that. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining. I think we had like very interesting conversations. I'm very excited about these fights. It's my birthday like in 30 minutes, so I'll be leaving right now. But again, thank you so much for everyone. I'll be putting timestamps on this, and I'll be publishing the recorded version of the podcast tomorrow for those that want to listen. So yeah, take care. Thank you so much. I'll catch you guys on the next one.